What's up, guys? On today's episode, we're going to be going over something a little bit controversial, and that, of course, is vinyl wrapping your car. Now, I'm going to wrap the Audi R8 in Nardo Gray. Now, before you guys freak out, I know you're going to say, what are you doing? I love the metallic silver. I agree, so do I. But the consequences of putting this on are very minimal. You put it on, if you don't like it, you rip it off. It's not that big of a deal. So throughout the episode, we're going to go over the step-by-step process to actually put it on. Now, I've shot a video in the past about the differences between vinyl wrap and clear bra, but I really wanted to focus on the step-by-step process for doing that. We're going to be talking to my buddy Christian from Toronto. He's the Canadian guru for all things vinyl. And I want to really walk us through that step to understand, hey, is this the right thing for me to do? Because I love putting it on the car and saying, is this the right color? Do I want to paint it in real paint this way? Or do I want my wheels to look this way? It's kind of a fun way of dressing up the car. And if you don't like it, you just rip it off and move on. So I'm hoping you guys can watch this and appreciate it and say, oh yeah, it's sort of like Plasti Dip on steroids and it looks a little bit better. So it's a fun little niche in the detailing world, and I thought it'd be an interesting video to shoot. So that and a lot more coming up on this very exciting episode of Drive and Protect. All the way in so that they touch up paint on it. You can hear it. The first step, of course, is to pull the car outside and give it a thorough bath. Naturally, it started to rain on us, but the goal here is to dislodge as much dirt as possible prior to the wrap, which seems painfully obvious. However, the importance of a clean car when applying a wrap is overlooked because wraps are applied dry, which is completely different than clear bras, which are done wet with water and soap. Clearly, both material applications need to be clean, but if dirt gets on the wrap, water cannot be used to flush out the vinyl as it'll lose its tackiness, while clear bras can use soapy water to push the dust and dirt off the plastic before adhering it to the paint. In other words, the dry application of vinyl wrap has no margin of error for leftover dirt, debris, or moisture of any kind. With the car inside, we wiped it down with microfiber towels and opened up all the jams to release hidden water and slow drips. Next, Christian blew out any remaining water from the grille, mirrors, window seams, door jambs, engine, and so on before preparing his tools for installation. This is a plastic squeegee used to lay the wrap flat against the shape of the car. He replaces the felt strip on the edge before each job to minimize scratching during the application, especially on chrome wraps as they are more noticeable on the mirror-like surface. However, before any wrap touches the paint, he first disassembles the vehicle, starting with the emblems. Step 1 is to create a template with masking tape around the current emblems so that once reinstalled, the guesswork of where each is exactly placed is not an issue. We kept the template stuck to the compressor tank for safekeeping. Once we're all done, all you need to do is put the template back into place and install the double-sided tape and reinstall the emblems. More on this trick at the end of the video. To quickly remove the emblems, Christian's using fishing line called spider wire. This is braided fishing line made of fluoropolymer microfiber, which is thinner, stronger, and has less stretch than traditional fishing line, making it easy to fit behind the emblem and cut through the double-sided tape. To do this, use a sawing motion back and forth behind the emblem to slowly release the sticky foam. Once the emblem's removed, a sticky residue will be left behind. Use a Goo Gone type remover to release the adhesive before applying the wrap. I also quickly polished it because love marks are usually left behind after rubbing the glue off. Next, it was time to disassemble the car, but to make life easier, we put the R8 on quick jacks to minimize the repeated bending over to reach what felt like a million screws. First was the trunk plastics, then the front bumper, leaving behind a dirty mess. It's absolutely amazing to see what sneaks behind bumpers, which was making me completely insane. Anyways, we then removed the side grills, the front grille, the parking sensors, and the blinker lights from the front bumper and moved it outside for a proper cleaning. The same process was repeated on the rear bumper and wing, then taken outside to remove the caked-on dirt and mud before wrapping it tomorrow. Same thing goes for the mirrors, which admittedly were quite hard to remove, especially because of the four-way adjusters. With the mirrors gone, though, it allows Christian to lay one big piece of wrap over the mirror hole and easily cut it out later, otherwise you would see a seam on the door where the two pieces of vinyl would meet. Again, remember, this process is less forgiving than a clear bra because the purpose of this particular product is to change the color of the car without having to repaint it. However, if one piece is not wrapped completely, the underneath color will easily be seen. Okay, so as an example, I have my black SUV and I put Nardo gray over here and clear bra. Again, I did this really quick and it's not perfect, that's not the point. The point is, when you're putting a vinyl wrap on, there's literally zero room for error. I don't know how they deal with it, these wrap guys, because if you just cut just a little bit too short, that black kind of comes through, right? And you're like, okay, if I have a red car underneath and I want to make it white, for example, if you just miss a tiny little spot in the door jamb or something, that red is sort of coming through. Same idea here. Now, if you have clear bra and you make a mistake or you're an eighth of an inch off, it's clear, you can't really see it, so it doesn't kind of, while you're walking around, bang, punch you in the face, kind of like, oh, red's coming through or black's coming through. So inherently, I think, when doing vinyl wrap, first of all, you're usually doing the entire car, not just a nose, like clear bra, typically. There is this pressure that I think these guys are under to do a complete wrap. That's why we had to take apart the entire car. So it's nice to have a little bit of appreciation. I thought this was a fun example on a black car to see that it does squirt through if you're not absolutely 100% full coverage. So day one was pretty much all cleaning, disassembling, removing stuck-on glue from the emblems, and prepping tools for the next day. Early the next morning, Christian began by measuring and cutting material to cover the passenger side door. Next, he added masking tape to the black window trim to protect it from the blade and to prevent the wrap from sticking to the trim. He started the process with the door because of its unique or curvy shape that would create tension in the material, causing it to fight a clean or easy installation. The R8 door is a perfect example of how much thought, effort, and patience is required to properly install a vinyl wrap without losing your mind.
This door is actually a little bit different than most doors. So check out the recess here. This is if we're talking about high and low points when it comes to bridging a gap, we've got a high point. Our high points are here and here basically. If we put a flat piece of cardboard across there, our high points, and that's our low point. We've got a considerable amount of stretch there, and I highly recommend you don't stretch into that area, simply because it's most likely going to fail. You can go in there and you can post heat it. Again, there's a much higher risk because of how deep this recess is compared to how much vinyl we actually have in this area. We're probably looking at about 70% stretch. That's a lot. I don't ever recommend more than like 20, 30 tops. So what we're going to do is we're going to work this vinyl in, up, and feed it into here, and then I might add a little bit of heat across here, stretch it out, and glass it out again and get it all smooth. But again, there's going to be absolutely 100% zero tension in this area. That means it's impossible for failure, and that's the whole idea. We're trying to avoid failure, get full coverage on the vehicle surface, and have a nice, long-lasting wrap in the end.
After the door handle and trim were covered in masking tape, Christian cleaned the door and the seams one last time and blew off any dust immediately before laying down the previously cut sheet. Normally, to make life easy, small magnets are used to hold the vinyl in place as it's being adjusted on the other side, but because the R8 is aluminum and carbon fiber, he instead sticks part of the corners to the paint to hold it in place while he's working by himself and readjusting on the other side.
What you want to do is anchor down one side and roll this backing paper off, all right, as smooth as possible. It's always important.
And although the wrap looks like a mess at the moment, it's actually normal at this point in the process because the material being used is much different than a clear bra.
I find this, for me, is more of my forte. I don't like doing the wet application stuff because it leaves the floor wet, you're kneeling down, your feet are soaked all day, that kind of stuff. So it does have its disadvantages as far as working with it goes. Again, this works differently also. We're using a heat gun a little bit more, I think, than PPF. So what we're gonna do is just position this. Okay, we don't wanna rip it off the car, we just wanna get it glassed out. So you see how I'm pulling vertically, and I'm also pulling a little bit towards me. I'm gonna fix this up a little bit over on this side now. So let me make sure I'm anchored down on the other side since we don't have magnets. We don't want to rip it off the car, like I said. We've got to be careful. So again, I'm pulling slightly towards me, and I'm also pulling vertically as well.
Most doors or flat panels are typically worked from top to bottom to work with gravity, meaning pieces of vinyl aren't hanging down on top of you while you're trying to work. It's a no-brainer, but what makes this door so unique is that you need to work from the bottom or the middle and squeegee upwards because of the R8 side blade and the cavity under the door handle. Notice the air pocket that's created just under the handle.
You see, super tight.
To alleviate the stretch in a recess or cavity, Christian pulls the wrap downward to remove the tension and squeegees the material into the cap, making relief cuts and trimming excess material along the way. Most of you are probably wondering if he's cutting the paint, and the answer, of course, is no. He's merely scoring the surface of the vinyl enough to pull it apart, the same idea as the Clearbra guys. With the door now covered, he removes the excess material but leaves about 1/8 of an inch flap of vinyl. Then, with a tool called the wrap stick, he slides the vinyl under the trim for 100% door coverage. Notice how the vinyl is curling as he pushes. This indicates the space between the door and the trim is filled and starting to spill out, meaning there's no chance of seeing any original paint behind the wrap. The excess is then carefully scored and removed. Now, the same idea for the door handle. However, because a tiny edge of the handle right there wasn't fully covered in masking tape, the vinyl stuck to the paint instead of the masking tape, causing him to retrim and heat up the vinyl to get it to cooperate. Now, the reason I mention this is to demonstrate how technical and precise installing vinyl wrap can be. When just a sliver of paint is not prepared properly, it'll fight you the entire time. Again, no margin for error. Over the next few hours, he wrapped both the rear quarter panel and the engine bonnet. Watching him work gave me perspective and immense respect for his craft. This requires far more patience than Clearbra and with zero room for error, so his preparation, technique, and patience was bordering on monk-like. But even a monk needs his rest, and after 11 straight hours of tedious work, he had finished the roof, both doors, rear quarters, and engine bonnet, and was almost done with the hood when this happened.
So we're about 10, 11 hours into this wrap, and I'm at the end of the hood here, and look what I did. I burned it. So I wasn't paying attention. I was focusing on stretching the film across. I had my heat gun in my hand while I was holding the film, and it just touched it for a split second. That's what happens. We make mistakes, so we got to redo it. I can't leave a burn mark in the film. It has to come off, so let's just take it off. It sucks because I got the rest of the side perfect, so. That's it. Redo.
So at this point, we both thought it was best to stop here and get rested for a fresh start of day number 3. Now, secretly, up until then, I was concerned Christian was some sort of non-stop machine, so it was kind of nice to remember he was a human. With that said, he is by far one of the hardest working, most focused technicians I have ever filmed. Check out his in-depth videos and training program for becoming a pro vinyl wrap installer in the description below. Bright and early the next day, Christian wanted to complete the hood, aka his nemesis, first before starting the front and rear bumpers. Notice he's wearing a special vinyl wrap glove by Vivid that allows him to work the edges smoothly without sticking or gripping to the material, making for a smoother installation. With the hood done, he secures the empty bumper to the car with 1 or 2 screws so that he can stretch and pull the wrap around the bumper in one piece without it sliding around on the floor. He then cuts out the pieces for the grille and wraps it around the inside of the bumper to avoid seeing any seams. Off camera, he removes the bumper again, reinstalls all the grills and the sensors, then permanently reinstalls the bumper and the trunk plastics that cover the bumper clips and screws, then repeats the same process on the rear bumper. However, on the rear-facing Audi placard, he surprised me with a subtle feature I'd never thought of. First, he placed his template back on the original paint, which I thought at first was a mistake. Now, he noticed the AMMO logo was almost exactly the same length and width of the Audi rings, but I didn't want to have a white logo on a gray wrap. It wouldn't make any sense. Nonetheless, he placed the white logo on the original silver paint before laying the vinyl down, which would essentially cover the sticker, so it didn't make any sense at first. After scratching my head and wondering what he was doing, he then measured and cut a fresh piece of wrap. As he started to lay the vinyl down, the AMMO logo appeared through the film for this very subtle, tasteful, and unique feature on the R8 I didn't even think was possible. Now, all that remained was installing the mirrors and wrapping them on the car, and the R8 and the Audi emblems on the front and rear. Seems simple enough. However, I later learned mirrors are extremely hard to wrap and require a multi-piece application and special technique because they're essentially round, sort of like gift wrapping a basketball. It never looks pretty. To do this, Christian uses knifeless tape to perfectly match 3 separate pieces of wrap together. I asked him to explain and demonstrate how to use this special tape on the workbench before the real application, which needs to be done after the mirror is reinstalled on the door to make pulling and stretching easier because he'll have something to pull against. But the bench would be easier to film and discuss, so here you go.
Knifeless tape is a tape that can cut vinyl. So what you do is you put your knifeless tape down, and it has a filament inside, a string inside, you can see, that is going to cut the film. So you put your knifeless tape down first. So on a mirror, we do this mirror in a couple of pieces. So we would do something like this. So obviously we want to cover this section, that's the idea. The reason why we're using knifeless tape is because we can't wrap this mirror, it's not possible to wrap this mirror in one solid piece of vinyl. We can't take this one piece of vinyl and bend it around this very curved mirror. So we're going to do it in several different pieces. We don't want to have any wrinkles or anything like that on the knifeless tape, so it's got to be smooth, just as you can see. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start from the bottom here, and what I want to do is I want to pinch the knifeless tape, okay? It needs to fold over itself. And we're going to do that, the way I do it, is right at where the film is. Put a good amount of pressure, not too much, because we don't want the string to break, but we do want to put good pressure on there, and we want to pull this string. All right, so the string actually separated from the knifeless tape. So what we're going to do is follow through here, and that's going to cut through completely. Okay. So there are 2 pieces normally. There's going to be 2 pieces, one on the outside and one underneath the wrap. So you might notice there's little bumps there, and that means the wrap is lifted. That means we took the knifeless tape out from underneath it. We have to push it back down. So keep that in mind. You always have to go over it again.
Now, to connect another piece of vinyl, he adds more knifeless tape and repeats the process again from the opposite direction, overlays the vinyl, works out all the error and creases, and pulls the string again, joining the 2 very curvy pieces together. With the mirror mounted to the door now, the same process is repeated for the backside, while another piece is shaped for the rim of the mirror and the inner part behind the mirror glass. Then another large piece is heated and stretched around 3/4 of the front-facing part of the mirror and smoothed out again. Then he removes both lines of the knifeless tape and flattens the edge. Finally, he cuts out the turn signals and tucks the edges under the lens for a seamless finish. The very last steps are to reinstall the emblems. To do this, 3M double-sided tape is needed. First, lay the emblem, in this case it's the 8 of the R8, on one side of the tape for full coverage, then flip it over and trim. The trick here is to not cut out the exact shape of the emblem. Instead, give a little space from the edge to avoid seeing adhesive from behind. Now what's left over is just the 2 holes in the 8. So flip the 8 over and trim 2 rectangles from the backside to ensure the adhesive cannot be seen from the front. Don't waste your time cutting perfect ovals around the holes. Just cut 2 rectangles or squares and give a bit of room like we did before. And don't overthink it. Repeat the same process on the R, then grab your stencil once again. With the stencil in the correct position, peel the red backing off the double-sided tape and lay the emblem onto the wrap and give it a solid push, and you're done. Really, the hardest thing about removing emblems is not the removing nor is the replacing of the adhesive, but it's actually finding the exact placement from factory, so your template is key. Keep in mind that most wraps have some level of self-healing capabilities as well. Notice the scratch here. With the heat gun on low, a few quick passes level the love marks and they disappear back into the material. You can also leave your car in the sun for a bit as well to have the same sort of effect. Once all was said and done, I asked Christian if he could sign my wrap under the license plate to remember the experience and to immortalize the uniqueness of my custom installation. As I'm learning, the wrap looks a different shade of gray or light blue depending on the ambient lighting you're in when you're looking at the car. So for instance, under my filming lights in the garage, it looked a little bit more silvery, while outside it looked darker, almost light bluish. However, I think the silver polished wheels and the stock ride height are distorting the eye and causing the wrap to look lighter in person. So, in the upcoming videos, we're going to be installing JRZ RS Pros, repainting the calipers and the rims, and playing with the ride height to complement the new Nardo Gray vinyl wrap. Well guys, the wrap is done and it looks absolutely spectacular. I've been driving around for a couple of days and people are like, oh my gosh, you painted your car, which is probably the biggest compliment to any wrap guy. So huge thank you to Christian Kungl at ckwrapstoronto.com. Check him out, he's the man. He's done amazing work, and like I said, he is one of the hardest workers I've ever filmed. Really intense dude, and clearly his work speaks for itself. So if you have any questions, shoot me an email at larry@ammonyc.com. I'll do a quick walk around. And you probably noticed I've changed the wheels around and the ride height. Again, we just talked about that a second ago in the video. I do think it makes the wrap, it changes the way the wrap looks a whole lot and adds a little bit of depth. And we are missing some center caps. We're going to be doing that later. Lots more coming up. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.